All right. So today we're going to be diving into a topic that is real close to home for a lot of you: parental involvement in youth sports and their careers. So, if you got a kid that's currently chasing their dream on the field or on the court, this one here is for you. Now, let's talk about it. Youth sports has always been a big deal. They build discipline, they teach teamwork, and install resilience and character. But let's be real quick. The game has also changed too. With the new NIL deals and the chance for your young athlete to start building their brand early is a big deal. And it's happening fast and it's happening now. So the role of parenting is more crucial and more complicated than ever as well. So here's a question: how much hands on guidance is too much? When does encouragement turn into pressure? And how deep should you dig into those pockets for your kids' sports careers? Also, let's not forget, should we be thinking about this as a long term investment, as if this is the new business venture, right? Or the family business, whatever you want to call it. So let's hit you with some stats. The NCAA tells us that only about 7% of high school athletes get the opportunity to play at the collegiate level. And if you think those numbers are small, check out the professional stats. Less than 2% get the opportunity to play at the professional level. Now, here's another alarming stat. Plus, over 70% of kids actually end up dropping out of their sports organization by the age of 13. Now, this is mainly because of burnout and the pressure that comes with having to perform at a high level on a consistent basis. So think about that real quick, right? Parents are out here shelling out thousands on training, gear, travel, all hoping that it'll pay off when the odds aren't in their favor. But the truth is, the majority won't even see a return on that investment. Just more stress. But that's not always a bad thing. We're going to dive a little bit deeper. All right, so we're dealing with now what? Financial strain, emotional ups and downs. That is a lot to handle. But I want to break some things down to you. Here's some pros and cons of having a potential involvement in your youth sports. So let's talk about the pros first. The pros are your child will have a solid support system as young athletes that have more access and resources and opportunities. Their skill development should enhance, and the potential for scholarships and early brandings. Listen, everybody wants a free education, as expensive as college is these days. But now let's talk about some cons. Here's some cons. Big financial strain on the family, increasing pressure leading to burnout, negligent of education and personal development, and last but not least, the strain on the parent-child relationship. Now, these are some real concerns, right? Now, the challenge is finding the right balance to ensure your involvement and you're supportive, not just suffocating your child. And it's not just in sports. Parents are pushing their kids in entertainment, chess, science, and other high-risk reward industries. But why don't those parents get the same bad rap as parents that are pushing their kids in athletics? I don't know. But if you see some early potential in your kid, shouldn't you exploit it? The truth is, whether it's sports, music, or academics, the goal is to nurture the talent without burning out the passion. It's a tough balancing act, y'all. And that's why I'm excited to be joined with my co-host, Dr. Katrin Wilson, and Coach Billy McCullen, also known as Coach Mac. Together, we're going to give you some insight and some solutions that you may need. Now, it's all about finding the right balance. Too much pressure, the child might crumble, and too little, they might not reach their full potential. Now, Dr. Wilson brings with us her expertise in sports psychology, helping us understand the mental and emotional aspect of things. And Coach Mack, well, his extensive experience in corporate America, along with coaching at the high school and the junior college level, will give us some practical advice and some insight on the sports landscape. And our collective goal is just to give you the tools and the knowledge to make the best decision for your kid. We want to help you navigate this complex landscape so that your young athlete can thrive both on and off the field. So Stick around as we dive into this topic with an in-depth conversation between myself, Dr. Wilson, and Coach Mack, when we'll be addressing your questions and sharing practical solutions to these pressing issues. And before we get into this, let me let you know now, if this is something that you enjoy, please don't hesitate to share with at least 5 to 10 other people. And if this is your first time checking us out, please don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and also leave a comment. We love feedback. As you know, this information is not for us, it's actually for you to share. And good constructive criticism and feedback can only help us grow. I mean, we're athletes at the end of the day. That's how we're wired. Anywho, that's enough of me talking. Let's go ahead and get into this. This is going to be fun. So I'll go ahead and catch you on the other end. I'll get at you.
You are now experiencing Hugh XM.
So this title is Parental Involvement in Youth Careers. Do's and don'ts. Should parents take this more serious now that sports is a big business, or should parenting be the traditional way as far as in, hey, I'm just here for support. I pick you up, drop you off, go to a game or two. Good luck in the future. Your thoughts. Let's dive into this thing.
Okay, so that whole drop you off, good luck, no, that's not even parenting. So absolutely no, that's not parenting. That's chauffeuring and dropping off. That's not the parenting role. So no, sports have always been a big business. Mm-hmm. It's now we have access to see it in larger, broader, more consistent spaces, but sport has always been big business. Mm. It's just now how we're approaching it because we have such broader access.
I get that. And the reason why this topic has came up for several reasons. And Bill, maybe you can attest to this, and even Kat. Being in the community, we hear a lot of parents or even supporters of youth in the community say things like, why do you push your kids? You know the odds. You know what I'm saying? Why are you treating this so serious? And I'm always questioning, like, it was crazy. I had to question myself to think I was wrong for thinking this way. But I was like, if my son or daughter can sing their ass off, wouldn't we be pushing them to sing? If my son was just, I'm not saying our kids aren't smart, but I'm talking about brilliantly smart. Wouldn't we be pushing them in that area?
Absolutely.
So why is it so negative pushback when it comes to sports?
I think the pushback is because it's a difference when you see your child has a gift or you see them more athletically gifted or further along than their age group. It's something totally different when I think the athlete or the kid isn't quite there yet. You're trying to push them to be beyond where they are right now, like in the moment. I think that's where that's stemming from, Jay, because I think to the question, right, it's a little bit of both. Like you should push your kid, but you also should be there for support and tell your kid it's about having fun up to a certain point where they get into an age where it's like, okay, now you're starting to get to an age where the competition is starting to get a little more serious and you got to dial in. If not, you have to be clear that this isn't for you or it's going to end at some point at high school. Like this game is going to end for you because you're not all the way in. But I think in my opinion, man, it's the kids that, or the parents for that matter, that are trying to push their kid to be the next, I don't know, let's say Patrick Mahomes or LeBron James, but those two individuals have a gift that not everybody have. Like there's a physical trait, there's a physical element that comes to that you can't quite put in everybody else. Like God made them a certain way. And so I think that's where the disconnect lies, because I think there are parents that try to push the average athleticism kid, be it at maybe 10, 11 years old, and saying my kid can be the next superstar, and they very well can be, right? But I also think that parents have to be realistic and they have to look at where their kid is now and are there traits that they can develop and grow and potentially be that superstar. I mean, I caught a documentary with Kobe Bryant and his team, how they carried on his 6-year vision. Right now that he's passed on, he's longer here, and some of the folks that are in that helicopter class die with him, but those that were left behind that weren't a part of that still carried out that same plan because he instilled in them like, look, today we aren't very good, but if y'all just work and continue to get better in this 6-year plan, you guys can be really good when you guys go to high school. And so I think parents also miss that. Like they want these kids to be good tomorrow. And that's just not the reality. Like we may have played at a young age, but we didn't really blossom until we got to college because from a maturity perspective and a mental intellect, the dots started to connect. Until then, it was just raw athleticism. You was out there having fun with your homeboys, laughing because this dude got hit or congratulating the kid because he scored a touchdown, so forth and so on. You were having fun. It wasn't a business yet. But I'll stop my rant there.
It wasn't a rant. You was
It
right
wasn't.
on.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a lack of respect for the athletic prowess. Because being athletic isn't just physical. It's mental, it's social, it's intellectual. We don't honor that. So that's why people try to tend to say, oh, well, you're trying to make them the next Bo Jackson, right? You're trying to make them the next. But they're only looking at the physical aspect of the next. They're not looking at the mental, the psychological, the intellectual part that it takes to be that. So even if they're trying to be the next Mozart, there's other parts to that. But you would compare Mozart, like, oh, well, not everybody can be Mozart. Well, not everybody can be Kobe Bryant either.
Oh, Kat, that's so spot on too, because like I'm helping out on my son's team. We're talking nine. It'll be 10U this fall, but for intensive purposes, they're 9 and 10-year-olds. But like that couldn't be said better because some of these kids have mental toughness and some don't. Now, like you can grow mental toughness. Like there is an exercise to get there, but that's actually a very valid point that I think most do not talk about is the mental capability for these stars to be able to operate the way they do beyond the physical portion.
Yep.
Correct. And I want to even double down on that because something I'm seeing too, I don't want to call it a shift, but maybe it's a split, right? Every parent thinks the highest of their child, right? But then you have that parent that actually been there, played, went through the system, and can see certain things that maybe the average parent can't see. So they may be able to spot a kid that on the field to the naked eye doesn't look like a kid that's going to be good. But because you recognize certain intangibles, you're like, wait a minute, I kind of want to hone into that. Versus you may see a kid that's beating everybody up and you're like, well, he's just bigger than everybody, but I don't see any fundamental skills. The rest of the kids gonna catch up to this guy in puberty. You get what I'm saying? So I think it's different perspectives coming from different people. And before we got on this call, like I was telling you, I got the opportunity to talk to a good friend of mine who played with me, and he just had the dream of a lifetime by having his son go to his alma mater. And he was telling me that process. And this is a guy who's been there, and he said it was extremely stressful, that whole process. So I can only imagine a first generation parent experiencing that. And like I said, today, congratulations, Bronny James. And Bronny Jr. just got drafted from his dad. So it's like there are different levels and different environments where you can say right away, like let's use LeBron James' son. We knew this dude is a super talent. Are we going to compare him to his damn dad? No, but we can still compare him to others. This dude is different, right? But then other people are looking at other developmental things, his stats in college, which is the person that looks at an actual athlete like, okay, we can fix that problem, but it's something you can't teach. Dude got damn near 42-inch vertical. You can't teach that. He's explosive. If it was me, I would have him playing receiver or DB. The kid's very explosive, in my opinion. I don't know how tough he is, but that's a whole different conversation. Football ain't tough no more anyway, but that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, what was your thoughts on that angle?
Which one?
Okay, yeah, I know, right? Okay, the first part, as far as there's a difference in parenting, meaning some parents have actually experienced what the top looks like, or just the different levels. So they see things that maybe the average, or like I said, a first generation parent doesn't see. So they're able to push because they know the Deion Sanders, like, hey, I know how to make strategic moves to get you in the position or the place that you need to be. I think that's a different, go ahead.
So unpopular opinion is even the comment that you said, well, football is not like it used to be anyway, right? So what you actually see as talent could be superstar, but because of the level of talent that's there, do people realize what a superstar really looks like? Because they're kind of used to the average mediocre, but coachable, right?
Good point.
So
good point.
It's like now that we're looking at it from a lens of a tougher era, what are we really comparing it to? Is it the current one or what it was when I was in the game?
That's a good point.
The
And then
They're
latter,
now
coming at
that
it
makes
from a
it
barbaric
difficult.
brute sport
Right,
versus they're coming at it more intellectual.
the
And that's
right.
why they have longer careers. It's a good point.
So we have to remember that, right? So, you know, what was it? There's a percentage of games you have to play now in the NBA, right?
Mhm.
Well, if you compare that to eras before, it's like we have 82 games. I'm playing 82. Like,
Right,
what
right,
are you talking about? Like my arm hanging off, but that's okay. We're just gonna bandage it up, but I'm just gonna play, you know.
right, right.
So the level of physical toughness, emotional, psychological, back to that again, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're measuring what to what. And as a parent coming from a different era, how are you able to guide your kid in the current era based on the era you knew, based on the talent that they show and the discipline in which you have to for them to go to the next level? It's so many things that you as a parent have to navigate through as a parent already, but then in addition to everything else, like how do you do it and where do you draw the line? Even when talking about Bronny, people see different things in him, positive, negative, neutral, right? But what is Bronny? Not as the son of, but who is he and what is he capable of and what does he want? Because when I look at it, I'm like, are we looking at this as just a historical thing that we can put in the books that we are the first father and son to do LMNOP? Or do I want you to be good at what you're doing and I'm good at what I'm doing, and together we can build a franchise? What are we doing? Is it
What's the
talent
why?
or is it history?
Gotcha,
And
gotcha.
it's yet to be seen.
Interesting, because you're right, because that's a different perspective from a Dion and a Sedora Sanders. Of course, Dion's not playing anymore, but mentality. I didn't think about that. That's why you got the damn doctorate. Cat, thank you. Speaking of that, because I got questions for you guys, and you're up first. So here's my first question for you, Kat. So the balancing act. What are some signs that parents might be pushing their child too hard in sports, and how can parents find a healthy balance between encouragement and pressure?
So first of all, the parent knows because their heart beating fast. Their hands are sweating. Then they know, wait, I'm too deep.
Okay.
Right? But when
Okay.
they recognize they too deep, do they pull back and then be the parent and encouraging? Right? So then I think we talked before about the words that we're using. After the game is over, is it criticism? Is it critique? Or is it that you're asking your kid, how did they see their performance? And then watching how they respond to you will let you know whether you're encouraging or pushing. Because if everything that's coming out of their mouth is a negative and not a positive critique, because there's a difference, but you're going to hear it from them. And then you're going to know, okay, yeah, I need to pull back on this part because that's all they're mentioning to me, what I would have mentioned to them at first. So
Damn.
you just have to watch.
I struggle with that. I just got on my little man. He only 6, and but I get what you're saying, because if you play somewhere, you know what it takes, but you forget that this kid has to develop. And like Bill was saying earlier, this stage is supposed to be more fun, less serious. But then every parent is guilty of comparing to the next parent. You see another 6, you're like, how the hell is this kid doing this? But then at the same time, you see the natural talent in your kid, and you be like, boy, if you only knew what the sports gods gave you, you would have exploited the hell out of it. But instead, you want to do it's a tough tug of war.
It's a tough balance. It's tough. It's tough, but the parent has to know because you've been there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're 6. So you can't view it as 16.
right?
You
100%.
have to be in the present. They're 6.
Right.
Let's talk about the natural child development that's happening at 6.
Agreed.
Let's progress naturally at 6. You can't compare what you saw at 16, at 19, at 21, because he's 6.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's both. Like, I ask my kids after their games, how do you think you play? What are some things you think you could have done better? What do you think some things that you've done well? And dead quiet. I just want to hear their brain churn and them articulate what they saw in that moment. But at the same time, I'm also intentional around telling them what they could have done better. And the things that they did do well, I'm trying to normalize that's the expectation. Like that's not above and beyond. That's just you playing basketball or you playing football. You were in transition on the fast break, you made a layup. That's expected. That's not extraordinary or anything like that. Is just a average part of the game that you've experienced that I'm trying to normalize. So I think it's I take the perspective like a little bit of both. Like there are things that I want my kids to know that's not extraordinary that you did. But I'm glad that you got to experience that. Let's continue to build on it. But I also am mindful of the fact that at 9, 10 years old, I'd like to see how your brain is processing what just happened.
So
That's
my
fair.
question for you, why wasn't it extraordinary for them if it was the first time they've ever done it?
That's a really great question. And my answer to you is because my perception is based on a really, really freaking high bar. And so
Right, that's what I'm saying.
yeah, like that, but and I
But
will own
they've
that.
never experienced it,
They have
right?
not.
So you can be like, that was great. That's expected of you all the time.
Yeah,
Because you said to normalize it, right?
that's fair.
So you can normalize it and still honor it at being their first time doing it.
Yeah.
So not like, oh yeah, you did it. That wasn't that great. You were supposed to. Well, they don't know they were supposed to. That was the first time ever doing it.
Yeah.
So it's like encourage it, yes, and then put that expectation. You need to do that all the time. Now you set an expectation based on what they just experienced, because originally you're setting an expectation on what you've already experienced before. Well, for them, it's new.
You know,
I
it's
know.
crazy.
Every time Bill looked to the left.
No, because it's like it's you are spot on. The problem is, listen, I mean, Alan Watts said this a while back, and I'm gonna paraphrase here, but we unintentionally just repeat things that were done to us, right? So like that was my upbringing. Like I wasn't praised for scoring touchdowns
Right.
or getting interceptions. Like, I mean, you're supposed to do that. Like I was praised for doing above and beyond things. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. That was just how the man
Exactly.
raised us, right? But we need this perspective because you're right. Like encouragement could be a normalization of that for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be an error thing because my dad was the same way, but so were my coaches. Hey, I just broke this record. And they looking at me like, yeah.
So what? You were supposed to. Right.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. That was the era. Right.
It's crazy. Yeah.
You're supposed to.
I got you.
But if you know the first time you did it and the accolades that you got from it, you're gonna want to do better yourself.
Yeah, human instinct.
Yeah.
You want to do it again. Right, 100%.
You're gonna want to do it again. You're gonna always want to make your dad proud, your mom proud, your coach proud because you did.
So you're saying we should highly celebrate the first time and gradually make it a normal thing.
Yeah.
And that's fair. That's fair. Because I got to get that dopamine rush to know, like, hey, what you did is awesome. Get addicted to doing that. And then slowly it's like, hey, it's an expectation.
Right. Because it's the opposite, right? They did something great and he was like, yeah, that wasn't nothing. You're supposed to. And then they go, well, I gave it my all. Well, I'm not going to do nothing now.
Right.
I did my all and did this great thing. And you said it wasn't nothing. Well, I can't never satisfy you. Never mind. I'll move on to something else. I'm playing the violin now.
Be on you on
Nothing's
that.
wrong with the violin, right?
Exactly. I'm going to be on you on that too. All right, B, this one is for you. This is more of a business background. So with your background being in both sports, corporate America, should parents approach the financial investment in their child's sports career? What are some key factors they should consider if that's the direction they want to go?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes, but I preface that answer with it has to be, I think, at like the mature age, like when they get about, I haven't experienced this firsthand, so a lot of this is more opinionated than it is fact-based. Let me start there. But I think like the sweet spot for that is around like 14, 15 years old, and you have your kid playing travel ball. There's a significant investment in that. Like again, I've got an 11-year-old daughter that we got a trip to Vegas in a couple of weeks for a tournament that's a part of travel ball. And there's a significant financial investment in just paying for the tournament, paying for our travel, all the things that come into that, right? But to your question, J-Bo, I think that, Yes, like if you have a kid that is invested in a sport, and by invested I mean you can see the fire burning in them to go want to work out, to go and practice, to go and challenge themselves. You can see them enjoying competition. I think if you have the means, you 1000% should invest in their long-term success in that, because if not, then what are we doing as a parent to encourage our kids to go after their dreams, right? So hold that to one point.
Okay.
The second part of your question, though, around um, what factors should they consider, it's striking this balance of everything has a time and a place, and it doesn't always have to be year round. Like that's the part that I struggle with like the financial piece and just like travel ball specifically, because travel ball goes year round. And while you can elevate a kid's experience tenfold, because at the end of the day, it's just more reps, right? What the kids get today, J-Bo, that we did not get when we were kids, where we played multiple sports. It's not wrong, it's not right, it's just different. And those multiple sports translated in other ways to our main sport that we enjoyed the most. But if you want to, 2x, 3x someone's ability in the sport, give them more reps. And so travel ball has allowed that because they're just getting 3x the reps by playing year round. But the financial ramifications that have is quite significant. And so I just think that there's a time and place that you have to invest in your kid. And you also have to be okay with saying, like, we're gonna relax, I'm gonna let your body rest for a second. So that way you can also taper off the financial commitment that is on the parent, the burden that's on the parent.
I'm glad you said that, because I actually have a scenario question later down in this process that deals with that. So hold that thought for a little bit later. I'm glad you said that. But also when you're mentioning that, I'm also noticing how things change, because I'm just thinking about my dad. I remember Mel Mel telling me a story about basketball. He's playing travel ball, and it was a Vegas tournament, and he was like, he needed some money, and his pops literally was like, "Look, man, if you ain't good enough for them to pay, you ain't good enough for them to pay, bro. You ain't going."
Seriously. But that's a component of that too, though. Like there are kids that just have unique athleticism that coaches and other folks will pull together funds to get them to that tournament, and that also happens. But again, if you have the means to it, I think you should invest in your kid. If and only if you see there's an appetite that kid also wants to go attack that same goal. And if not, if you feel like you got to pull your kid to this goal, you should not be investing.
Yeah,
And
that's out.
like as a small story, now I don't want to go off too much on a tangent, but I literally pulled on my son's football team. I pulled a coach to the side. And it's a cat that I played with in Park Ball. Okay, he has his son out there, and his son J-Bo don't want no parts of physicality. I mean, like this, he is a oddball out of a bunch of pit bulls that's just chomping at the bit. And the one thing that young men, boys, that's just innate in their growth is identifying the weak link and picking on him. And so I went to the side and was like, bro, I'm not telling you what to do with your son, but it's obvious that he don't really want to be out here, man. And why are you putting this, you pulling this man out? I can see him looking at you, seeking your approval with every rep, only for him to lose that same rep. So he's trying to get your approval because he's trying to prove his dad right. He's trying to get his sign of approval from his dad, but he just doesn't have it. And you like, that's okay. But as a parent, as his father, knowing that we got some little East Side babies on this team, right? You got to get this dude up out of here, bro. Seriously.
And if he wants to have them in sport, maybe that's just not the sport.
Right. And that's
and it's okay.
And that's okay. But I'm like, you trying to force a round peg in a square hole with this one, man. Get this young man about this sport, bro.
Yeah. And in certain sports, you shouldn't be introducing your kid to first if he doesn't have that if that's not his you get what I'm saying? It's attitude. And it's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't make you soft or anything. But like you said, it's some sports, combat sports like martial arts and football, like you kind of got to be wired a certain way to be able to excel. Right. To cap that question, because we talked about ROI and investing. Now, are we making this investment in our child for development, or we have a destination in mind?
I think it's both, right? The destination we can't control. Like that's within the kid. At the end of the day, this is outside of our control. But the development that they'll get from that though is truly pivotal. Like just the
Okay.
maturity, like how to go about things, like is I think a really great experience.
Okay. Perfect. Kat, this one's for you. So can you talk about the psychological effects on young athletes when there's too much potential, when there's too much potential involvement, parental involvement, there go that education, parental involvement versus too little. So how can parents support their children without causing the burnout?
Again, parents have to check themselves. Like there's nothing more or less to add to that. Parents have to check themselves. They have to regulate what they're doing, how they're doing it, and to what extent they're doing it. Because bottom line, they're still a parent. So guidance, support, discipline, all that still plays a part in it. It's just how you do it, to what extent, and knowing your kid's personality. If they're not one that likes to get yelled at, then it's like you have to show them, like, this is how it's going to happen sometimes. How do you deal with that emotionally? It's not personal. That coach is just loud. Don't cry. It's okay. But these are coping skills, right? So are we teaching coping skills in the eyes of athleticism? Only when it has to do with you didn't do that play right. But do we know how to do that interpersonal relationship between your players, between the coaches, between other parents, and then the parent, how they're responding? So it's really up to the parent, because they're the adult in the situation. They're the one who's been around the moon a few times. So they have to understand, okay, I'm setting the tone, I'm setting the experience, because what I do in this moment can impact my kid negatively or positively for the rest of their lives. That's a parent. And those are things that parents have to go through all the time. The environment doesn't change the fact that you're still a parent. And you're going to have to see, okay, I have to watch my kid. I have to see how they're responding to certain things, and then teach them how to respond. Like the gentleman Billy was just talking about. It's like, does he even see what his kid is experiencing? Or is he so blind to what he wants him to accomplish?
Right.
So now we're looking at experience versus accomplishment.
An opportunity just turned to trauma. Like, hey, bro, this is starting to become traumatic.
To trauma.
Like, what we doing?
Right? Yeah. So it's like, what did I just do? Because that first experience in anything, if you didn't talk your way through it, it could be a bad experience anytime it looks like that's about to happen again. I don't want to do that. No, I'm never going to do that. So you just have to, again, I always talk about balance. I always talk about the environment and knowing what's necessary, but it's really just being in the moment, being present, and knowing how I'm going to respond right now could impact my kid for the rest of their lives. Because we know it. We talked about it just a few minutes ago. It's like, yeah, they said that to me, so I'm saying it to somebody else, right? But they're not built like us.
No,
not like us, right? They're not, right? They're not. Yeah. So it's like, not that you're softening it or changing it or making them like punks to society. They're different people. Environments are different. So
I say living in a different world in different times. I think that's the key thing I'm learning as a father. Not saying society is softer. I hate to use that word, but it is just different. You don't have to have that level of edge. I'm talking to my grandfather, and he told me stories. I'm like, oh, he was 10 times tougher than me. You had to do what, bro? Yeah. Okay. You were doing what, grandpa?
Right. It's different.
And,
because we're considered soft to that generation.
Very.
Right?
Very. Yeah.
So if we're looking at the evolution of people, we always say, oh, you get softer over time, right? Because technology makes us a little.
That's what society does. Yeah, that's
right. So that's what happens. But we also know that sport is a microcosm of society. So everything that's happening in the world of sport is happening in society. So if you're trying to run away from sport because you don't think that's the thing, that thing you're running from is going to hit you in the corporate world.
That's life.
Because that's life. Yep.
Big time facts. I love that one. All right, Bill. Back to the investment thing of it. So from a coach's perspective, because like I said, you're doing that as well, what are the benefits and the potential pitfalls of pretty much treating youth sports as a career and a long-term business investment? So how can, because you already said you're for it, so if that's the case, how can a parent realistically gear or steer their child? And I'm gonna preface with this too, and use me as an example. I'm pushing my kid because I want free college. I work in higher ed. Shit's expensive. By the time my son gets there, school is going to be $500,000. So you better run faster, jump higher, be the smartest dude in the room. I'm sorry if you're trying to go to school. So it's a business decision for me. I'm just keeping it a buck.
Yeah. I think like, I don't know, man. I always go back to asking again, let me set the question or set the context that like my own kind of like parenting style of my own kids, but I always want to hear or I always default to what is it that you want out of this and wait for their response. And whatever their response is, it's my job to hold a mirror back up to them and let them know you either are getting closer to this end goal or you're furthering the gap from that end goal. Like that is my entire paradigm, like within this question, right? And so to answer your question, man, just around like the potential pitfalls is burnout. And I think like that is an art more so than it is a science, but you also have to pay so close attention to your kid. Like again, I think like right now, my daughter is more about going after the sport than my son is at this stage in their development. And that's okay right now. Again, they're 10 and they're 11. So I push her a little bit harder. But setting that aside, like it's only my job to hold that mirror up to her and say, here's what we have to do if you want to achieve your goal. If you want to go play at USC or UCLA, these are the things that you have to continue to get better at if you want to achieve that goal. Same thing to be said for my son. Now, on like the opposite side of like planning that realistically, I think you have to be super realistic with these kids. Number one, from an athletic perspective, you have to put them around good talent. Iron shoppers iron. You can't spoon fed these kids and try to tell them that they're going to be great, and they can be. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know what her end makeup is going to be like height wise, size wise. So until that point where I start to see, advancement in that area, my goal is to try to put her around high competitions. That's the only way she's going to get better to even have a shot at that. And then working backwards, we start to talk about like, what does it look like mentally to be a scholarship athlete? Start to talk to her about when you're on scholarship, you don't have any free time. It's school, it's meetings, it's study hall, it's more meetings, there's food. And this is 365. You probably get what, 3-4 weeks in between semesters where you have some alone time, and that was football related. I can't even speak to what the basketball schedule was like, but from summer workouts, you get 3 weeks or maybe 2 weeks off, and then it's fall camp. Once you start fall camp, you locked in until December at the earliest if you don't go bowling. You go bowling, stretch out to January, and then you get a week off after the bowl game, and you're back at it because it's winter condition before you start spring ball. So like it's a 365 grind of you, school, football, workouts, meetings in some capacity, right? And so again, like I think you have to start exposing them to what that's like as early as you possibly can. We talk about this a lot, J-Bo. Exposure leads to expansion, right? So, right, like I take the approach of like I want my kids to see what it's like to go to a UCLA camp or to a K-State camp, and we can go back to one so they can visualize like what's attainable. Because as soon as they can see it and say, I can go after this goal, it now starts to formalize in their mind, as opposed to if you never expose them to that, it kind of seems like a folk tale.
Yeah, you're right.
I even encourage you to have your kids to find someone at the college level that they look up to or they like or they watch and reach out to them. Now, because of NIL and exposure and social media, they could easily find a mentor that's in college right now in their sport.
That was literally Bill's
they
real
can
life
tell you.
scenario.
Right.
By blood, though.
Just like, right. Just like reaching out to like, I'm 11. I'm interested in doing this. And then have them journal this. Because if ever you look at after a person has made it to whatever level of athleticism they make it to, they always go back to a letter that they wrote themselves when they was in the 4th grade. Right. But now we have so much exposure to people, right? So just like I met this person at this age, they told me this, and I want to be this. So now they've set the goal, they've written it down, and that's going to become their legacy because they're going to see it.
Yep, absolutely right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I always encourage to reach out because, again, you're talking from the perspective of where you were, right? And the sport that you were different. So it's like, yeah, look at that UCLA basketball team. That's where you want to go? Look at the team. Look at the roster.
Yep.
Watch some film. Who do you want to talk to? Okay, let's go reach out to them.
Look how
Let them know we're here and we want to come to practice.
Yep.
Because some things you got to touch, see, and feel. Oh, this is how big they are. This is how fast-paced the game is. This is how it gets. So when it happens for the first time, because like I said, we've seen when we transferred from junior college to D1, and it's a shock when you're like, oh, this is different. But if you haven't seen it or touched it before, you damn near get caught like a deer in the headlights. Versus I've been around those players when they always just been around it, and I can see how poised they were when they got on that stage. Like, yeah, man, I've seen this before. My cousin did this, or my dad played here. Like, I'm good. I'm comfortable here. Versus you seeing it for the first time, you're like, oh shit, these lights is bright.
Yeah.
Right.
That's fair. Okay. This next part is scenarios. All right. So the first scenario: should a student athlete miss a family vacation to attend a tournament? What factors should a parent and an athlete consider making this decision?
Again, man, if your child is all in, absolutely. I've missed plenty of family outings. My family used to go camping once a year, and they always had to fall around some 7-on-7 tournament. And most times it felt like in August where we were starting camping. You can't miss no days in camp if you're trying to see the field. So I think it just depends on like how committed your kid is. If you're committed is all in, if your kid is committed and is all in without question, like I'm not even second guessing that. No, you going. But if you tiptoeing and I can tell that you're tiptoeing, this is an opportunity for me to tell you that you probably shouldn't be playing this sport and let's go to this family vacation and do something different.
Agree 100%. Because the same thing is going to happen if you're a doctorate student in a doctoral program.
Bingo.
You're going to be missing some events.
Bingo.
So wherever you're dedicated and you have that passion to be, so some of the social things will suffer.
Damn, you hit it on the nail, Kat. Like I was home probably, like you said, Bill, 2 to 3 weeks at a time per year type. Like I'm not missing this. What are we doing?
And that's to Kat's earlier point, that's a teaching moment too, like to teach kids that if this is what you really want to pursue, you can't be outside all the time. Like it's unrealistic, at least if you really want to be good.
That's that commitment and discipline. We're teaching all the time. Yep.
Okay. Next scenario. All right. Are we holding our kids back? If so, what grade? Or what age?
Yeah,
not doing holdbacks?
No.
I have like so much like man, I'm not trying to knock anybody that does, but and maybe it's because I come from a different era. My problem though is in the way you phrase the question is like folks are doing it for an athletic edge. And to me, like that's just straight lame. And
that's the strategy. That's the strategy.
Listen, bro, if you can't compete amongst your own age group and you got to go down to a younger age group, then fam, you should not be playing. What are you going to say, right, when you go to college and you got to line up against a 6-year senior because he got an additional COVID year. So he's actually been in college for 6 years. The young man is like 23, 24 and you 18. You going to turn it down? You can't. You still have to compete, right? And so like, I hate the entire premise of it, man. I'm not a fan. I just think it's the fact that it's
my pushback.
My problem.
Here's my pushback.
Don't talk to me about maturity.
Let's say I can agree on you. Let's say I can agree with you. But now if everybody's doing it, now it's damn there. It's like you damn if you do it, damn if you don't.
Yeah. Okay. I love that you went to this analogy, right?
Okay.
Now I'm about to go.
Because I want to know what 16-year-old is busting 19-year-olds' asses in high school.
Bro, Adrian Peterson was one. He was a freshman.
Bro,
was
he's a different human, bro.
But that's beside the point. The point I'm trying to make is if you're good, you're going to play regardless. You shouldn't have to go down to a younger age group to get off, particularly when – here's the part I didn't say though, right? Most folks start the holdback, at least my understanding of it is they start the holdback at about the high school they reclassify. Between those ages of 14 and 18 are significant jumps in testosterone and mental intellect. And so like that edge isn't something that should be overlooked. Now, when we in college, most of us are done. Some are still growing, but for the most part, you're almost about 80% complete of what your physical makeup is going to be. So like that's a less of an issue. But from 14 to 18, man, that year by year are significant jumps in testosterone. So like that's my root cause of you're playing you shouldn't be on this field. Quite frankly, you should be playing with other folks at your same age group and development.
Okay, what if you do it at an early age, like grade school? You repeat the first grade or the third grade.
Do it. Period.
No.
If we're looking at how education is, the things that they say and do, now we're just going to talk about the Black male child.
Let's go.
And I'm going to purposefully hold them back to delayed development. That is wrong. Point blank, period.
But what if their development is delayed? I'll give you a personal experience.
If their development is already delayed, you're not delaying development for athletics. You're developing
mental.
And it's not even delaying their development. Their development is already delayed and they must be held back.
Right. That was my case. That was my case.
Have to be.
It's like, hey, bro, you got to do the 4th grade again. You can't read. Okay.
Right.
It is what it is.
That's totally different than saying, I don't want you playing at this level because they're better than you. No.
Gotcha. Okay.
Absolutely not.
100%. I want to be very clear. I'm with Kat on that one. Like if it's developmental, go off. But if you're intentionally holding back so you can have an athletic leg up, I'm anti that all the way.
Absolutely.
Anti.
Just to have you go to the college level and they hold you back to not play just so you can get your academics together. What did we just do?
Okay. Then why do they redshirt in college then?
But it's college.
Right. Again.
But you're progressing academically. You're just not playing.
Right.
So it's not the same thing. It's the total opposite that we're doing. And anytime you're purposefully delaying the development of an individual, I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Got it. I knew the doctor was going to have an issue with that.
Not in the good old US of A. No, sir.
You're not holding back. All right.
Because my thing is, like, if your kid can compete, why hold him back? And if he can't compete, then you're trying to hold him back so he can get recruited more. Like then,
because eventually he's gonna have to compete regardless. You're gonna have to face him.
At some point, he has to. At some point, he or she has to be on their own, and that's the part that I think also parents don't fundamentally understand. You can try to micromanage this process as long as you can, but at some point, if they are able to go to college and sign that letter of intent, they are on their own. And if you haven't equipped them with the tools to compete and to have the mental intellect not to take things personal, they're not going to survive regardless of age.
That's maturity level. That's that maturity level. That's that discipline. That's everything that was foundational as a kid. They take it with them.
Next scenario. We live in the NIL world. Whether you get it from the institution you play for, you go and get it on your own. Should parents be strategically trying to set up avenues for income or even just to build that student athlete's brand at an early age or early stage?
Define early stage, early age. Like
that's a good question. So should we be doing this in elementary, middle school? You better be doing it in high school and college, of course. But like, how early should we be going?
You can't say they better.
Why not?
Because they don't even know what that is.
Let me ask you a question. Here's the reason why I'm gonna push back on that. I had a job in high school. So I learned how to work and make my own capital in high school.
You had a job in high school.
Okay.
So again, we have to look at individual people because I don't know anybody who had a job.
In high school?
So they're looking for me to get everybody out of their situation. So who am I learning from?
Wait, reframe that. What do you mean?
I don't know anyone who's worked. Everyone has lived off the system or were entrepreneurs in a whole different way.
In a different way? I see what you're saying. Different views of the world. Okay.
So what are you going to show me in the corporate stems of taxes and coverage and all of these different things? Who am I learning from? Right? Because I can't do what I've never seen.
Okay.
So if you're saying that we should be doing this at a young age, no. Why? Because again, I don't want to continue to make Black bodies a commodity.
Yeah.
But that's the reason why that's my argument. If a system can exploit my child, why don't I prepare my child?
Wait, no. If the system exploits my child, then I could do it too.
No. Listen to what I'm about to say. I'm gonna cap my argument. if the system, because we know how they do it, if he's involved, it's going to be some level of exploitation. That's how we got to this problem, right? So if that, as a parent, I should equip my son to be more in control of not his future, because like I said, it's who picks him to go to the school, whatever, but I should be able to position my child to be like, all right, bro, this is how the game is. So you need to set yourself up for you to be able to move.
I would say it depends on if the parent knows what the game is, right? So I'm hoping that the parent is not putting the emphasis on the child to be the bread and butter and putting things on the child that the child does not understand. Right, because it's
see the lens that you're speaking from. I didn't consider first generation. It's a total different. I understand where you're coming
right?
from.
So it's like
it's
a training that we have to do. So even if they're in the 4th grade and they're in a traveling team, and Adidas wants to come and sponsor this kid, okay, we have to talk about what that means. What does that look like in the present tense, in the future tense? Like, what does it look like? And it's hard if it's the first generation. And then it's also hard when now the pressure is on that 4th grader to know that I'm the breadwinner. Because now, what does that mean?
That's crazy, Kat. It's two worlds with two extreme perspectives. Because I'm thinking of a middle class responsible dad. Like, hey, man, you're going to learn how to hustle the right way. So while you're doing this, I'm going to set this up for you. All you need to do is do your job, but just know that some stuff is getting taken care of on the back end. But most first generations, you're right, ain't thinking that you about to save the whole family and get us out of poverty. Now that's a pressure that 6 to 12-year-old ain't ready to deal with. All right, I ain't consider that.
So just always, surrounding yourself with people. Even if I don't know it, let me find somebody. Yeah.
Interesting.
Which is also why I think like most second generations not named prime tell their kids not to focus on endorsements and keep the main thing and just focus on that, because they'll come. Once you start making noise, they're going to knock on your door. You don't got to go seek it out and trying to brand yourself. You keep yourself out of trouble. They will come and find you. And like that would be the approach that I would take. Granted, I understand I'm not first generation, and I probably would start that when they go to college. I actually don't even want my kids exposed to social media like that too soon, for a separate reason, for a conversation for another day. But again, if you really like that, and now we have opportunity to sign a letter of intent, now we can have this conversation. I can start to equip you with more tools to branding and marketing. But I do think there's a fine line of exposing them to that too soon.
Because what we consider a hustle mentality, we have varying definitions of what hustle means.
Depending on, what family structure, where they're at. I got you. Time and error. Yeah. Some kids are more mature than others. Some kids is already inclined to, like, I know how to go out and get my own. So that's something that's easy versus, oh shit, more pressure. Now I have to perform.
I have to do it. Right.
My mom and grandma is counting up. No, you don't want them problems. I got you. Okay.
Yes.
Here's the last part. This is exercise time. We, as a collective, are going to create a strategy for the viewers, and they can take this advice, this strategy is just something, or they can go build their own. At least we're coming with some strategy. So here's the rules. We're going to pick a son or daughter. We can pick a sport if we want, or it's just an athlete. But let's, as a collective, come up with steps and a game plan and I want to start it from 6th grade all the way to college, of how we would steer our child, our beloved, all the way to at least to college. We can't speak for professional. That's where my hands is off. Even if I get the opportunity to walk my son down the stage, the professional thing, I'm staying away. That's for the adults, bro. We will hire somebody for that. But yeah, so let's do it.
So I'm one for journaling the process. Parent checking themselves. So at this age, am I creating a balance between academics and athletics? Right. I like to say, are we preparing them to play? Meaning pairing learning and athletics for youth, right? So PLAY, are we preparing that? And how do we pair it that we're creating that balance early and consistently? So whatever sport it is, whatever they're doing, are we putting the same emphasis in talking to your coach about your playing time as we are talking to your teacher about getting you extra assistance and help with the test? Are we putting on the refrigerator your pitcher Or are we putting up there the fact that you got an A on your exam? Or are we putting both? Do I have your schedule of your exams or your test in elementary school, or only your schedule of your T-ball or whatever sport you're playing? Just creating the balance early so that as they progress and get older, they know that the expectation of them is to be good in both spaces. Mm-hmm. Then also creating a space where if they're not good somewhere, how do you get them help? If they weren't good in the sport, you will put them in extra training and extra this, that, and the other. If they're not good in academics, you give them a tutor, you give them all those other things. So you always creating those balance levels. Now, as a parent, you're making sure that you're doing it because they're going to feed into your expectation. So for me, it's just creating that balance, checking yourself as a parent to say, am I pushing them in one way or the other, or am I helping them to create the balance for every step that they make?
Kat, did you just come up with an acronym on the fly?
No, I've been holding that for a minute.
Okay.
That seemed practice. That wasn't organic.
Yeah, I've been holding that for years.
Okay, yeah. I'm about to say, yeah.
I've been holding that.
Okay. And can you break down play again for those that probably missed it? Go ahead.
Pairing learning and athletics for youth. PLAY.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So the balance with that, got you. So journaling and pairing the balance with both the academics and everything, and just that whole process from there. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, Bill. What are you putting into the pot?
I don't have too much to add, man. I thought that was pretty spot on. I think what I would add to that, though, I probably would double down on just the process that it takes to get there, and having small milestones of achievement, to celebrate along the way, as almost have like a carrot that you dangle to get them to continue to stay like enthused about the journey, because it's going to be long and it's not all going to be a straight road. It's going to be bumps, it's going to be jagged, there's going to be, a step backwards, there may be a lateral step before you can go forward. And so I just think, wow, in the way you frame that question, as you build both mental and physical with the kids, having small wins in them for them to achieve, having small wins in there for them to achieve while documenting that is going to be pivotal to keeping them going until they get to a place where they are self-driven and no longer need you to carve out, right, like that space for them. They're starting to do it themselves, and it's going to take the parent to be mindful, like, okay, what I've been doing is now working. Like, I'm starting to see them do that on their own, and now you can kind of coast a little bit, and then you're almost a CEO of just like managing their journey now, telling them, I would do this, I wouldn't do that, giving them perspective, but also giving them the freedom to do so on their own. Like, I'm a real big advocate of letting kids, or people for that matter, fail, right? Taught lesson is the best lesson ever. Like, you have to learn that by experience.
Wait, Kat, you agree with that? That's the old school method. Hold on. I thought you didn't like the old school method. That's the old school method.
Absolutely. Failing is a part of learning.
Absolutely. Okay. I like that approach too. It's actually a combination of mine, of what you're saying. But to piggyback on what you're saying, Bill, like, what I want to do is be a master facilitator. Mm-hmm. Is be able to, because that child is actually experiencing it. And so we, as parents, are going to have different vantage points than our child because he's in it, right? He or she is in it. So, and another thing, if I'm a master facilitator, is take me out of it. And I don't mean the experience, but my ego, especially me being a parent. Like, I never want to be that parent. I'm pushing you because this was my passion. I don't care if you got great potential that I see that you don't see. I just want to be there to be like, hey, you have a support system. And I also realize the dynamics between my child and I. And there's some things that I can beat down in my child's head he won't get, but the next man that he looks up to, he just suggested and he gets it. At first it used to bother me, but I took my pride out of it because my goal is for you to get it. Yep. Whether you get it from me or you get it from another man that I trust, It is what it is. You got it. Mission accomplished. So once I learned that, then I was like, all right, then, Jay, you just need to be a master facilitator and find the right person that can draw out the genius in my child and keep orchestrating and moving those things. But I like that you put in, Bill, allowing them to fail. So there's some things I got to pay attention to. Be like, yo, he's going to fumble on this one. I need to let him fumble, but make sure it's not a fumble that'll end his career or end something.
Right.
Like, judge the fumble. Like, okay, he can recover from this one.
Yes.
It's going to hurt, but I think he'll be all right. Let me let him bump his head versus like, all right, bro, this might want to be catastrophic. Let me intervene, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And give them that opportunity to express and explain how they experienced that moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's back to the journaling, right?
Back to the
And the
journal.
documentation.
And documenting it. So it's like you're doing it, but then you're asking them. They don't always have to write it down. They can just tell you. And then you can be like, oh, okay. And then at another time, another space, you can bring that up. And it's like, remember? And then you can even look at the milestones, like Bill was talking about, looking at the milestones. Like, remember last time you couldn't do this. You set this goal that you wanted to do 10 chin-ups, right? On that day, you only did 5. And now we're looking back and you're doing 20 easy. You can check that off on your list. Good job. Now I'm on 40, right? So, because you did 20. All right, let's go. Now, setting those goals and those milestones, that's absolutely true.
Bill, what would be an example of celebrating a milestone?
So like,
of how you would celebrate is what I'm saying.
yeah. So like, with my son, for an example, they start practice every day with this thing called King of the Hill. And it's nothing more, we ain't got pads, but it's nothing more than a shoving match. But you're trying to push a kid off of their landmark.
Yeah.
And him stepping in there and just competing, not getting driven back off the ball, fighting is step. Congratulations. Like I'm just praising like that moment of you competing over a few weeks. And like now he's starting to win. And so just continue just to praise the small wins to keep him going, like, all right, yeah, like I can do this. Like it's just, and truthfully, it's building confidence at the end of the day. Like
Right.
Instill into these kids that they can do it, because it's one thing for you to believe it, it's something totally different for them to believe it. And that's the part that we've got to like just be super intentional about getting them to see that they can achieve it.
Mm.
And I always believe in the little carrot. Not everything needs to have an incentive that they can physically feel, touch, and see. But sometimes it's like, remember those shoes you said you wanted? Let me see how bad you want those shoes. Right? Those gloves that you can put your hand together in this shoulder. Let me see how much you want them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it was like, oh, sorry.
Yep.
You only did good enough for one glove.
I do the same. Like my daughter is inverse, so she's a little bit more skillful in the basketball court, but she doesn't compete at a high level to me. She takes too many plays off. So like for her, it's, did you compete for the entire period that you was in the game, run up and down the court, getting back on defense and transition instead of jogging, like celebrating those things as opposed to focusing on, oh, that was a dope crossover, because again, she's a little bit more skilled in that area, but she has to work on the effort piece. And I'm like, that's something you ain't got nothing to do with your talent. It's just all want to. Stop being lazy.
Right. And then show her film.
Yeah.
Show her film. Even WNBA, look at her. What she do? She took that playoff. What the coach do? Take her out and sit on the bench. See what happened?
Yeah.
We showing, we're celebrating, but we also have to show you consequences, like, that's what happens. That's what happens.
My last thing that I'm going to cap that with is not a question. All of that advice and those game plans that we just, I think is great advice, and I would advise people to use and make it their own. But the last thing I would say also, as a parent or supporter, whatever your position is with that youth, is also to create a philosophy and intertwine that kid's sport with life's principles within that. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're really doing it for. Yes, there's a goal in mind, free education, like we said. If you get a chance to play at the highest, that's all great. But the real reason is because we want to instill principles that we know that when our child becomes an adult, that they're going to be able to make it in this vicious world on their own. And I still strongly believe sports is the best tool to expose that in real time. So create your philosophy when you're doing, everything that we just said, advise for these parents and supporters to do.
Yep. Create your philosophy, create your rituals. I always tell people to have a mistake ritual. What do you do after you've made a mistake and you recognized it? If you look at athletes, they often clap. And when you're clapping, that makes your heart beat faster. That means your blood is pumping more, and that means your mind is more receptive to criticism and creativity, right? So you see athletes clapping a lot. You see different mantras, you see different things like that, and just encourage them to create that for themselves, even if it's mental, that they're not doing it outwardly, But whether you just tap on your chest, like I did that, I saw that, I recognize that. Okay, now I know how to do it better next time. I got it.
Yeah.
We see it in basketball, when it's like, I need to play defense, I need to play defense hard. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get down and slap the floor. Right. So just all of these little things that people may look at as being something arrogant, but they're rituals and mantras and philosophies to put them in a space of action. So we just have to also help them create that too.
I love it. I love it. And that, guys, was for free. You'll thank us later. Before we get out of here, any last thoughts I want to share?
No, I'm good.
All right. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys' time. This was great. That was it, man. That was that. If you guys got any questions, like I said, I'm gonna put in the description where you guys can reach out to Dr. Wilson and Coach Mac, and myself. Until next time, y'all, you know the drill. Stay positive, stay productive, but most importantly, stay in the present. And we out of here, y'all.
No, have a good one.
You are now experiencing Hue XM.